Why do you think that historically women's sports have been overlooked, and what started to cause that shift?
Look, I don't think any of us, I mean, obviously looking around the room and having it be majority of women, I don't think any of us are confused by why people didn't believe in women's sports. I think what made it even more challenging was the fact that you couldn't find it. I always say that fans of women's sports are the hardest working sports fans around because we had to work so hard to become a fan, to watch it, to attend, and to play. We didn't even get equal opportunity to play sports until Title IX. The most fascinating thing, if you've read Title IX, is there's one word in Title IX, which is the reason that sports exists at an equal level in college, and it's this word activity. They added the word activity to the sentence, the sentence of Title IX. If they didn't add the word activity, we probably wouldn't be where we are today. But what Title IX became, which is giving women equal access and opportunity to sports, has now finally kind of reached the professional level.
It feels like calling dance a hobby.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. It's like we practice as hard as the men. We play as hard as the men. The games are as entertaining, if not more entertaining, and yet it was always viewed as lesser than. And that's because the world at large said it was. And why did they say that? Because you couldn't find it. So when we started Angel City back in 2019, 3% of all media coverage was on women's sports. I mean, you could turn on ESPN and see cornhole, right? I turned it on once, and there was like some Excel competition, like how can I build the formula fastest? I lost my absolute mind, right? And so when the powers that be don't value you, right, and you don't have that platform to be seen, and you care, how hard do you have to work? And if there's not money coming in, because at the end of the day, Lorine has to make a return on her investment. So as passionate and excited as she might be about women's sports, if there's no opportunity for return, it's like we can't get out of the starting gate. And so the challenge has always been visibility. I think projects like Angel City Football Club and what we're seeing now in the Women's National Basketball League, and by having more incredible investors in the sport, the paradigm has shifted to the point where that 3% is now closer to 20% of all media coverage, to the fact that women's sports in general was on a streaming platform you couldn't find. Now you can turn on ESPN, CBS, ABC, Amazon, ScriptSign, and find us is a huge step forward, but we have to keep moving until we can get to that 50-50 level.
Thank you so much. That was so succinct. Lorine, what about you?
Women's sports has been left behind. Obviously now it's changing, but sports is a microcosm of society. If you look at funding that goes to not even just sports, women's sports, but just companies in general, startups, it's behind. I think what happened, and credit to you for what you created to show that you can make money, be successful, sell out, the stadium, and now she has the most valuable, Angel City is the most valuable women's franchise in the world, which is pretty incredible in a short period of time. I think advertisers and brands are seeing the value of investing in women's sports. And you have advertisers like Ally Bank, Google, who are investing. You know why? Because women show up, they're brand loyal. One other thing, though, I think is a big cultural change. So I've been a sports fan. I played sports in college, not in college, in high school growing up. I actually didn't play in college because there was no future for me. I said I couldn't make a living doing it, so I focused on my academics, became a lawyer, and now an investor. But I've been going to WNBA games, and I remember I lived in D.C. working at a big law firm, and I would walk by, I was 2 blocks from the arena, and I was like, oh, there's a game today. I would buy tickets for $5. Now, obviously, that's not the case. I bought season tickets for, New York Liberty. It's a lot more than $5 now, which is amazing. But what I started seeing is men bringing in their sons to the game. And I remember my godfather, he's the first black sports reporter at the New York Times. And now I'm forever a Yankees fan. I hope I'm not insulting anyone who's Boston or Mets.
We're in New York. I think you're safe.
But Mets, I probably have some Mets fans. But I remember he took me to the press box, and I saw the power of sports, how it unifies people and all kinds of people. And now I'm a forever Yankees fan because of that. And so men are bringing their sons, not just their daughters, but their sons. And those little boys are going to see that it's okay, it's normal for women to play sports. They're wearing Breonna Stewart jerseys, and they're going to bring their kids. And so I think that's also the change. Also, I think these women are becoming celebrities. You've got the tunnel walk, what they're wearing, fashion, and what social media has activated that. So, I think that those are the changes that have taken place.
Thank you so much. So something really weird happened. In 2024, the women's sports business market generated $1.8 billion, which is nearly double what Deloitte forecasted, which is annoying. This year, it's forecasted to hit $2.35 billion. So, Lorine, my question for you is, through 1.25 Ventures, you're investing capital directly into the women's sports ecosystem. Where are you seeing it needed the most, and what are you still seeing left on the table?
So, I think the big areas of investment are, teams and leagues. What I'm seeing is a lot of like niche leagues coming out. So, for instance, Unrivaled, the 3-on-3 basketball league, which they said they made $27 million last year. This year, the first season, and just really gave an opportunity for women professional players who actually don't make that much money if you compare it to men, and they're actually making more. So, for instance, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese made $77,000 their rookie year, whereas they're paying them over $200,000 to be in this league. And so,
Also, the top men's draft pick is guaranteed $10 million. For that comparison, 77,000 versus 10 million, just to highlight that discrepancy.
So luckily, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, these players have social media followers. They get brand endorsements. And so, it's like that $77,000 is nothing for them. But they're able to, get millions of dollars. And so you have emerging niche leagues, things around fandom, fan engagement, which I know Angel City did a lot of that, launching and still do. There's platforms and things around fan engagement, and, we're looking at that AI data analytics. There was a study done, women are prone to tearing their ACL. Studies shown that if they're, have their period on menstrual cycle, they actually have a higher propensity of doing that. So we need to have organizations that are addressing these, needs and issues of women that are unique to women athletes or
that we've
women.
never studied before.
Right. And unfortunately, probably a lot of that research is going to be cut. But those are, these are issues and problems, but we can find solutions for them. And so those are the kind of, investments that are, we're looking at, and opportunities.
Thank you so much.
Can I say one thing,
Yeah.
just to put those numbers in perspective? So 2.35 billion is a really big number. That's awesome. Do you know how big men's sports is? Ready? 471 billion, right? So there's a long way to go. One of the things that we're seeing, as it relates to what was being referenced about freshman year, 77,000, the top female basketball athletes in college today through NIL deals are making over $1 million. Right? So why would I go early into the WNBA to make less money where I might be prone to injury, right? Where I can continue to make significant money and build my brand. 80% of women's sports compensation is achieved off the court, off the field, off the pitch. So through those brand sponsorships, through those activations. So on one hand, it's sad, right? We are so far away from where the men's sports is, but the flip side is, think about the incredible benefit. And when you talked about brands, and I know there's a lot of brands in here, the opportunity to support women's sports has truly never been a better time. I always like to say there's 3 incredible reasons to support women's sports today. One, on a dollar for dollar value, it's a better deal, right? I did not say it was cheap, right? And I think that's the challenge, and that's that $5 to whatever, $65 that you're paying today. One of the other problems with women's sports, other than visibility, was value. We didn't value women's sports. Even those that owned the teams that cared about it didn't value it. Hey, please come watch us play. It's only $5. Well, you know what? For $5 and I buy a ticket, if it's raining or there's traffic or something's going on, I'm not going to show up, right? We devalued this product. So how can we say that we're so good if we don't even value it ourselves? One of the rules at Angel City is we never discount a ticket, ever. Because the value of the product, the value of these players, the value of the experience is so high that we want you to experience it, and we don't want to create any sort of thought in your head that I'll wait, right? So the dollar for dollar is better. So for example, front of kit, Angel City, $2.5 million. If you want to get a little bug on a men's NBA jersey, it's like $7 million, right? And with me, you're getting the visibility of celebrities and athletes and these incredible players. So it's still a real investment, but it's less. Second of all, you get a greater share of voice, right? The Masters is going on. Do you guys have any idea how many sponsors there are for the Masters? I'm not exaggerating when I say I think it's more than 1,000, right? But in women's football, like by way of example, I have 3 founding sponsors. Think about the exposure you get. So you get, for less money, greater share of voice. Like that sounds like an incredible business solution. And then the third piece, which is actually probably the most valuable, is this concept that you get this brand halo, right? Like you're actually on the right side of history. When you support women's sports, when you invest in women's sports, articles are written about it. People remember it. You're talking on panels. You get incredible investors that are promoting Ally Financial and Google, right? When you support men's sports, is anybody going to be up here talking about that? No, right? So like supporting women's sports now is like actually good business from a financial standpoint, from a brand standpoint, from a value standpoint, and from a growth standpoint. But the big thing that we need to do is value these products and value these women in a way that's representative of the product that they're putting on the marketplace, because that's what gets more investors in. You probably weren't looking at women's investments 5 years ago, right? But you are now, because the fans are coming, the sponsors are coming, and media is coming, so you have the ability to get a return on your investment. But she also gets the opportunity to get in early and to see that level of growth go from $2.35 billion to $471 billion.
I'll just double click on that. So the best time to buy an asset is when it's undervalued. And so
it actually leads me perfectly into my next question for you, Lorine, if I can just jump in here. So there's a lot of people here who are high level at their companies, but on an individual level, if somebody wanted to get involved in investing in women's sports, what would you say to them?
So come see me after, because I have a fund and I'm looking for investors for my fund that I can go and invest. But no, but I mean, what I would say is first, go to the games, go to the matches, like, support these teams that are out there, support these athletes, support the owners, right? So that's number one, be engaged. But also, you can invest in, there is a number of funds that have, mine being one of them, but a number of funds that have launched focusing on women's sports, investing in women's sports. And then there's also, I know some people doing like crowdfunding platforms to invest. So, but a team or league, that's one area. There's all other areas as well. But also what I would say, I tell people use their time, talent, and treasure. It's not just always writing a check. If you're an expert in marketing, if you're a finance expert, maybe volunteer and help out these organizations or a startup that's focused on women's sports or women. And that's the way that you can do it. But I wanted to talk on the whole undervalued asset. I didn't know about how large the men market was. I mean, I know it was really big in terms of, if you think about Boston Celtics recently sold for, what is it, $7 billion. And, you have the most valuable women's franchise. The number wasn't quite as much. But that's when you want to get into it. You want to buy an asset when it's low, not when it's high. And I really think the trajectory of growth, it's been quoted, women's sports is going to grow 300% through 2030. Whereas men's sports, yes, Boston, how much further is it going to go up? Whereas women, it's not as much. So you can get in now.
I mean, just to put a finer point on that. So Angel City acquired the expansion rights for the Los Angeles market in 2020. We paid $2 million for our expansion right. 2 years ago, Boston and San Francisco came into the league, paying $53 million each. This past month, Denver came in as a new expansion bid, $110 million. So there is excitement around women's sports, and it's still an opportunity to grow. And we haven't even scratched the surface of owning our own facilities, owning our own facilities, owning our own experiences, owning our own stadiums. How do you create a unique experience for women's fans, right? It's not exactly the same. It doesn't mean it can't have the same type of energy. Doesn't mean it can't be sold out and we're wearing the merch. But as women, as young girls, when you go to a game, like what is uniquely special to you that has never been thought of, because the entire sports experience has always been thought around men and young boys. So we are running out of time, but I don't want to leave the stage before we talk about some of just rapid fire, some of the nitty gritty of NIL deals, social media, how the Gen Z fandom is helping to shape the women's sports market. And I was wondering if you could both briefly touch on that and what you're seeing projecting into the future and what some of those opportunities are for people to kind of get in on these more technological components of the business.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'll give you an example. I invested in a company called Cura Story. She's a former data analyst at ESPN. She's created a two-way marketplace. She has brands, influencers, also focused on student athletes. She's about 100,000 people on her platform, health and wellness influencers as well as student athletes. And then she connects them to brands who want to connect. She did $8 million in revenue last year and, and growing. And she's tapped into the whole creator economy. And, these people are celebrities in their brands and they have a following. And so to your point, they come out of rookie year making $77,000, but they have brands and they can make a lot more money. So that's another area. Also,
and we're seeing women step into that celebrity status as women's sports gains that recognition. So that opportunity is only growing.
Absolutely. The other area, another company, Scout, it's basically a fintech company, registered investment advisor, also teaching financial literacy. They target student athletes who are doing these NIL deals and teaching them, hey, if someone's giving you a Mercedes G truck, you know what? That's a taxable event. You're gonna have to pay taxes on that. And his company is being hired by Division I. Schools are required now to provide education to these athletes. And so he has contracts with a number of big universities, and then also, then they can use the app. It's like he's bringing like an app making finance fun and cool for these athletes. So those are a couple of the, things that I'm looking at or investing in or tracking.
Thank you so much. Julie, what about you? What are you seeing? Where are we going?
Well, look, Angel City was built on the premise that fandom has changed drastically. It used to be, I follow a league. I love baseball, so I follow the MLB. I live in New York, so I'm a Brooklyn Dodger fan, right? And if a player gets traded, I now hate that player, I'm still a Brooklyn Dodger fan. That's not the way it works anymore, right? Like, we follow players first, teams second, and leagues third. So I'm a Kristen Press fan. She plays for Angel City. That's amazing. She moves to another club. I may very well lose that fan. So as we thought about building Angel City, it was not about building the brand of one player, but my entire 26-person roster, because they all have a unique audience and a unique following, and recognizing that when those players leave, I have to try to find a way to continue to grow Angel City and to grow a fan base. So for us, it's about providing content and storytelling around our players, which I think is really unique, which they get then to leverage to build their brand to drive sponsorships and revenue. But the flip side of that is the power is in the hands of the players. And you saw that in the NWSL. You're going to see it next year in the WNBA when their CBA is up and they get to renegotiate this minimum salary of $77,000. The power is in the hands of the players. So how do we support that and how do we incentivize and how do we partner with them so we're not seen as being on opposite sides of the table and trying to grow a sport that still clearly has so much growth opportunity ahead of itself?
Thank you so much. You guys should all check out Angel City Football Club and 125 Ventures. They're doing incredible work. Find them on LinkedIn. Follow what they're doing. You won't be missing out. Thank you both so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.